Racism is something we all witness. Many people fail to believe that race isn't a biological category but an artificial classification of people with no scientifically verifiable facts. In other words, the distinction we make between races has nothing to do with genetic characteristics. Race was created socially, primarily by how people perceive ideas and faces we humans are not quite used to. The definition of race all depends on where and when in the world it is being used. In US history, the meaning of the label white has changed over time. Before, a white person was considered someone that belonged to the group of Christianity. Now, they added Italians, Irish, and Jews into the same picture. The irregular border of ethnicities touch educational and economic opportunity, political representations, as well as income, health, and social mobility of people of color. So where did this type of behavior begin? The truth is, racism began as soon as people faced those of different races. We always had the fear of change, not to mention the unknown. It seems that racism has been around for so long that we would have been able to overcome it as our species develop, but contact with those of whom we are afraid of often lead to disputes, which, in time, is what caused racism to transform from people simply disliking each other to the permanent and indestructible foundation of common racism and prejudice. Racism and prejudice are shown through the two novels To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee and The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Racism is portrayed in the novels by Harper Lee and Khaled Hosseini through the lives of the protagonists Amir and Scout. Scout from the story To Kill a Mockingbird witnesses racism through the court case of Tom Robinson. Tom Robinson is an African American who is accused of raping a white American girl. Although he is innocent, the court still announces him to be guilty. Through this incident, Scout tends to learn a lot about how African Americans face discrimination on a daily basis. This is evident when Scout's father, Atticus, talks to her about the chances of him winning the Robinson case. Atticus explains to her that there is something in our world that makes men lose their heads. They couldn't be fair if they tried. Atticus knows that when there's a black person against a white person in court, the white person always wins. Atticus uses a metaphor to show how important it is for Atticus to have his daughter Scout understand it. Through this metaphor, he shows the narrow minds of the white people during the 1900s. Atticus's attitude toward the judicial system reflects the courts within the 1900s. When it mentions that men lose their heads, when a new thought is brought to their attention, they tend to turn their head to one side and stick to their old-fashioned views. Despite all of Robinson's evidence shown in court, people still find him guilty because people in the 1900s are very narrow-minded and refuse to promote equality. Harper Lee wants today's society to acknowledge the racism black people faced. She sends her message through this novel by imitating the racism that occurred in courts during the 1900s and also the racism which takes place in the 1900s society and applying it to the Robinson case. In The Kite Runner, the lives of the characters are deeply affected by the strong sense of racism. Racism is defined as the belief that race accounts for differences in human character or ability, that particular race is superior than others. The primary conflict of racism in the novel is against Hazara, who practice Shia Islam. The dominant group is Pashtuns, who practice Sunni Islam. Some characters call Amir's childhood friend a mice-eating, flat-nosed, load-carrying donkey. The Hazara are immediately identifiable as they are thought to have stereotypically Mongoloid physical traits. Amir thinks of Hassan as just a Hazara more than once, even though Hassan is the only real friend he has in the story. Baba has a similar relationship with Ali, Hassan's father. Amir's grandfather adopted Ali as his own son and Baba's brother, but his role is always as a servant. Amir and his father use the division between Pashtun and Hazara to oppress them in the most insidious of ways, as they pretend to be close to Hassan and Ali while keeping them at an arm's distance as servants in society. When Amir and his wife adopt Hassan's son, Sohrab, his father-in-law protests, "I have to deal with the community's perception of our family. People will ask. They will want to know why there's a Hazara boy living with our daughter. What will I tell them?" The Kite Runner expresses the theme of racism through the character Hassan being discriminated by others in society. Although Amir is his good friend, Amir does not show it in society because he is scared that others will make fun of him. Others, such as Asif, already do make fun of him for playing with Hassan. Racism is shown through this novel because society does not want the two to be together, but in reality they are together but cannot show that. Racism is present whether you see it or you don't. Racial jokes, slurs, and stereotypes are all part of everyday life and are forms of racism. Most people don't even realize that they are promoting racism. Some people just say, I was only kidding or I didn't mean it. But why say these things if they are hurtful? There are many hate crimes associated with race. Some of the more recent hate crimes have been against people of Middle Eastern descent. After the 9/11 attack, society has trained us to have certain opinions about different races, and because of those opinions, everyone has grown to judge and treat each other differently based on ideas that aren't even true. We internalize these opinions, which then reflect on our very own behavior. Some people are told that they are bad because of some racial reason, so they grow up believing it and being it because they are never taught anything else. Racism becomes a vicious cycle that needs to be stopped. All races have differences, but having differences doesn't mean that they have to be picked on or left to a conflict. Some people are being treated badly because of the racial discrimination. Some are even stereotyped, which is another type of racism. It is when people see Koreans and the first thing they'll think of is that they'd be good in math. Or when they see a Filipino, they think that he'd definitely enjoy boxing or might someday be a nurse and work abroad. Or when they'd see an American and think that she'd be too liberated. Why is it like that? Is our people really wired that way? In job fairs in America, white Americans are being compared to the black ones. See, even in a country full of protesters against racism, racism still continues. Some just can't stop being one. Well, yes, not everyone may have a racist mind, but still, the majority of the people in our society are racist, and some may have learned to accept and ignore racism. Yet some of our decisions are still being affected by it since, after all, everyone is a little bit racist, and some are just better at hiding and controlling it. And it may make us better human beings by proving the stereotypes wrong, but it will still make more people feel or treat others as rejected and hated. Racism shows up in our daily lives whether you are with it or against it. People are being killed and falsely accused because of their race, because a certain race is considered a thief or one race has to be dominant than the other. Racism in today's society is shown in the Charleston shooting, which took place on June 17, 2015, just about a month ago, in Charleston, South Carolina. Many black people were targeted by a white woman in a church. The killer's name was Dylan White. Dylan has given no reason behind the killings, but society has called it a racist action. Society's thoughts about one race being dominant has never changed and never will. It hasn't changed since the last 100 years. The whites still want to stay at the top. They bring other races like Asians and blacks down through their types of actions. Another act of racism in today's society is a video of a racist chant in a public transit bus.
And now we have yet another piece of video from that bus. I want to play this for the first time now. Well, if he wasn't identifiable before, the leader of that chant is certainly identifiable now. But you already heard the president of the university suggest that there will be a heavy investigation looking at all possible punishments, including the ultimate punishment from that university, which is expulsion. One other key piece of information from that news conference that President David Boren just gave ad hoc is that they will not only be closing that chapter and that house, and by midnight tomorrow night, all of the occupants of that house had better get their things out or contact the dean. But he also said these words: they won't be back, not at least while I'm president.
This racist video shows how narrow-minded white people are along with other dominant races. They do not want equality in their races, and they want to stop stay at the top of the race system. Events similar to these are shown in both novels To Kill a Mockingbird and The Kite Runner. They both portray the narrow-mindedness of people in society. They want one dominant race and are willing to do anything such as kill or abuse in order to get that. The concept is shown in today's society as we tend to abuse others' races in order to bring them down. In today's society, people like Dylan are killing lower class races, similar to how the Taliban are killing the Hazaras in order to bring them down. Racism had existed throughout human history. It is regularly defined as a belief that someone is less than human because of skin color, place of birth, and more. All of these arguments are based on false understanding of race. In fact, some scientists could argue that the classification of races used today is inadequate, and that there are more proper ways of categorizing humans. We may seem to be considerable racial differences to some people, such as skin color, hair, and face shape, and not much scientific significance. It has been said that there have been greater biological differences between people of the same race than if we were to compare the same trait to a different race. One philosopher writes, "There's a few genetic characteristics to be found in the population of England that are not found in similar proportions in Zaire or in China. Those differences that most deeply affect us in our dealings with each other are not to any significant degree biologically determined." This is said by Dr. Ramesh. So how do we put an end to this? The sad fact of this matter is that during this age we won't. People were born differently, and it's only human to retaliate negatively to things or people we aren't used to. Creating awareness of this issue can do a lot to acknowledge society about racism, but narrow-minded people are going to continue to be racist. I myself have tried to raise much awareness as I can about this topic so more people are aware of it and can stop racism if they see it happening, or if they are being racist to someone and are not aware, hopefully they will be more aware of it. This project was only to raise awareness in the classroom, but due to my personal experience with racism, I decided to turn it into a social action project. I raised as much awareness as I can by writing blogs, making a Twitter and Facebook page. I also went to Walmart to talk to others about racism and its effects on society. While doing so, I conducted a survey, and the results show that 73% of Walmart shoppers have witnessed racism in their lifetime. I will continue to make this topic an ongoing project and will continue to do such things as blogging to raise awareness. I myself cannot end racism, as I need the help of society and many others who share the same idea with me. Hopefully, the prejudiced thoughts of society will slowly change. This concludes my presentation, and I hope you guys get a better understanding of racism, and I hope to seek your guys' help on my ongoing project.